AITAH for not being able to save my mother. I need to start with the moment everything broke. Not the moment she died, no, that came later, almost gently, like the final note of a song that had been fading for years. I'm talking about the night she called my name, even though she wasn't supposed to be able to speak anymore. I was in the hallway outside her room, leaning against the cold wall, trying to breathe through another wave of guilt I'd been carrying since childhood. Then soft, raspy, impossible, her voice floated to me. "Evan, don't let me die alone." My blood froze. The doctors had said she wouldn't wake again. She wasn't conscious. She wasn't aware. She wouldn't speak. But she did. And that was the moment everything inside me fractured into questions that are still echoing inside my chest. The story my mother had always been a strange mix of fragility and steel. On good days, she smelled like warm cinnamon bread and hugged me as if she could shield me from the world. On bad days, she would disappear into her room with the curtains closed, leaving me to tiptoe through the house, praying I didn't trigger one of her storms. By the time I turned 19, her illness had hollowed her out. The doctors used words like degenerative, progressive, terminal, words that sounded clinical and detached, but to me they felt like cold hands squeezing my ribs. My childhood was built around protecting her from noise, from stress, from disappointment, and eventually from reality itself. And somehow I thought I could protect her from dying too. But that night, the night she spoke, was the night everything spiraled. The beginning of the end. I had stepped outside her room only for a second. 1 minute, maybe less. She had been asleep, or whatever you call it when someone is suspended between consciousness and the void. Machines hummed around her. Tubes glowed softly. Her chest lifted and fell in shallow, uneven motions. I had gone to the hallway to call my sister, Leah, who hadn't visited in weeks. She claimed seeing Mom like that was too hard, but it felt like an excuse. Everything was too hard. That didn't mean you got to leave. I was in the middle of leaving a message when I heard it. That whisper. My name. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a crack that echoed down the empty corridor. When I opened the door, she was awake, or trying to be. Her eyes fluttered, unfocused. Her hands trembled as if trying to reach for something only she could see. I rushed to her side. Mom, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. She blinked slowly. Her lips moved again. Don't let me go. The words were barely more than exhalations. They cut straight into me. And here's the part that keeps me up at night. I promised her something no human being can promise, something I had no right to swear. Something impossible. I won't, I whispered. I won't let you go. But within 30 minutes, she was gone. The moment I failed, she stopped breathing at 3:07 a.m. There was no dramatic alarm, no sudden gas, no flurry of rushed footsteps. Just silence. I knew even before the machine responded. I felt her hand relax in mine, as if she'd finally set down a weight she'd carried forever. And I did the one thing I still feel ashamed of. I froze. One, didn't call the nurse immediately. I didn't start CPR. I didn't shout for help. I just sat there holding her hand, willing her to breathe again, willing her to take back the promise she'd forced from me minutes before. When I finally screamed for help, it was too late. They tried, but it was too late. The doctor said she passed peacefully, but peaceful is not what it felt like to me. The aftermath. My sister arrived an hour later. She took one look at me, red-eye, hyperventilating, shaking, and instead of hugging me or comforting me, she said, "Why didn't you call sooner?" As if I had killed her. As if freezing for 30 seconds could erase all the years of slow dying that came before. My aunt later added, "You were with her. You should have done something." My cousin whispered he let her die. And the worst part, I believed them. I still do. Sometimes. The question that haunts me, I keep replaying that moment. I keep imagining alternate versions of myself, braver, faster, stronger, who jump into action instantly, who do everything right, who save her. But I didn't. I failed. Or at least, that's what I tell myself every night before sleep. So I'm here, asking strangers what my own family can't give me. Am I the asshole for not being able to save my mother? Was freezing in that moment a betrayal? Did I break my promise? Did I kill her by being weak when she needed me strong? Because no matter how many times people say you couldn't have done anything, I can't shake the feeling that I could have, and that I didn't. Continuation. Part E. I didn't sleep for the next 3 nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the moment her hand went slack in mine. Like a thread that had been cut, my brain replayed it with brutal clarity, the last exhale, the stillness, the absolute finality of it. I could almost feel her last warmth leaking out of her skin, leaving her body cold, unfamiliar. The hospital gave me her belongings in a clear plastic bag, the kind you'd use for lost and found items. Inside, her old silver necklace, a soft sweater that still smelled faintly of lavender, her wedding ring, which she had never taken off until the swelling forced it, a worn-out notebook I had never seen before. That notebook would become a problem later, though I didn't know it yet. The days after grief, I learned, makes time behave strangely. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like seconds. Some days disappeared entirely, others stretched until they felt like chains around my neck. My sister, Leah, was the opposite. If grief made me slow down, it made her sharpen. She moved with purpose, organizing the funeral, contacting relatives, updating paperwork as if she longed for tasks to hide inside. But every time she looked at me, I saw something behind her eyes. Not sadness, not pity. Something colder, something close to blame. At the funeral home, while discussing whether Mom would have wanted lilies or roses, she finally let it slip. "You froze, Evan. I know you did." I swallowed hard. Everyone freezes sometimes. Not when a life is on the line. "It wouldn't have mattered," I said, though I didn't believe it. She tilted her head, studying me like I was some fragile, cracked object. "You promised her you'd stay with her." "I was with her. Not the way you should have been." That hit me like a slap, because she wasn't wrong. Not entirely. But it also wasn't fair. "You weren't there at all," I snapped before I could control myself. "You didn't visit for weeks." Her face hardened. "That's different." "How?" "Because I didn't promise her anything." The notebook, I didn't touch the notebook for days. It sat on my dresser, staring at me like it knew a secret I wasn't ready to hear. The cover was soft, worn down by years of use, and the edges were frayed as if it had been opened thousands of times. I told myself I wasn't avoiding it, but I was. On the 4th night after the funeral, unable to sleep, I finally opened it. I expected recipes, or grocery lists, maybe memories of my childhood. I didn't expect what I found. The very first page started with my name. "For Evan. If you are reading this, it means I am gone. There is something I need to tell you before you carry guilt that is yours to bear." My breath hitched. My hands shook. I flipped the page. Her words, "You must understand one thing above all. You cannot save someone who has already made peace with leaving." I froze. My chest tightened. She had written those words with such steady strokes, as if she had rehearsed them. "You were never responsible for keeping me alive. You were never responsible for the things that happened to me. You were a child when I started slipping away. You were still a child when I broke." I felt tears prick my eyes. Because she had broken in ways I didn't understand until years later. In ways doctors didn't fully explain. In ways no one ever talked about out loud. I kept reading. "I know you think you should have done more. But Evan, my love, you already did more than anyone. You gave me a reason to stay as long as I did." My throat tightened painfully. The next paragraph was messier, the ink smudged as if written in trembling moments. "I asked you not to let me go because I didn't want to die alone. Not because I believed you could stop death. You didn't fail me. You fulfilled my last request." I wiped my face with the back of my hand. But then at the bottom of the page something was written that felt wrong. Almost like it wasn't meant for me. "If they ask you what happened, tell them the truth. Tell them I woke up. Tell them I spoke." I blinked. A chill rolled down my spine. How could she have known she would wake up? How could she have known she would speak again? How could she have known the exact words she whispered? I flipped the page quickly, heart thudding. The next section was empty, completely blank. The accusations began. It didn't take long for the whispering to start. At first, it was just relatives. A raised eyebrow here, a sigh there, then a few quiet comments about how Evan was the only one there when she passed, followed by meaningful looks, then more pointed remarks. "He should have called the nurse sooner." He panicked. He froze. He let her slip away. Eventually, Leah snapped at me during dinner. "Just admit it. You let her die alone." I slammed my fork down. "She wasn't alone. You know what I mean." "No, I don't." "Explain it to me." "You weren't paying attention. You were in the hallway. You weren't holding her hand when her breathing changed. You weren't watching her. I cut her off. How do you know any of that? You weren't even there. I know Mom, Evan. And I know you. She pointed at me like she was accusing a criminal. You freeze when things get bad. You always have. My jaw tightened. I hated that she was right. But I hated even more that she had turned it into a weapon. You think I wanted this? I whispered. You think I wanted to fail her? You did fail her. Something in me cracked cleanly, sharply, like a branch snapping under too much weight. I stood up. Get out. She blinked. What? Get out of my house. Evan, I don't want to hear another word from you. My voice was shaking. Get out. She grabbed her coat and slammed the door on her way out. And just like that, I lost the only family I had left. The strange occurrence that night, I woke up to the sound of someone whispering my name. Evan, my heart leapt to my throat. I shot up in bed, chest heaving. The house was silent. Too silent. I forced myself to stand and walk to the hallway. It felt colder than usual, the kind of cold that doesn't belong in a house with working heating. Then, from the direction of my bedroom, a soft thud, like something falling from the dresser. I returned slowly. The notebook was lying on the floor, open to a page I hadn't seen before, a page that had been blank earlier. I bent down and picked it up. A new line of handwriting had appeared, same in color, same shaky strokes as the smudged paragraph before. You're not alone in this, but be careful who you trust. I stared at the words until my eyes blurred. My mother had been dead for 16 days. Ending. The truth about my mother for days after the message appeared in the notebook. I lived into realities at once. In one, I tried to be rational, sleep-deprived, hallucinating, grieving so hard my brain was inventing closure. In the other reality, the one I secretly believed more, my mother was trying to reach me. The notebook didn't write again, not for a long time, but something else did change. People around me got bolder. The revelation it was the lawyer who finally unraveled the knot. I sat across from him in the stale office, the smell of old carpet and paper thick in the air. He slid a manila folder toward me. It's about your mother's will. I thought she didn't have one, I said. He cleared his throat. She did. A very recent one. He pushed the papers across the table. I scanned them with trembling eyes. Almost everything. The savings, the inheritance from her parents. The old family home was left to me, not Leah, me. My stomach dropped. The lawyer continued carefully. She stated in her letter that you were her caregiver for years, that you gave up school, work opportunities, your personal life. She wanted to compensate for the burden you carry. Burden. The word cut sharply. I kept reading. At the bottom of the will was a handwritten note attached with a paperclip. My mother's handwriting. I read it silently, breath caught in my throat. If anything happens to me and Evan is blamed, tell him to look where I kept the truth. The red box in my sewing cabinet. My vision blurred. She had hidden something. Something important. Something she feared would matter in the end. The red box, I found it exactly where she said it would be, tucked behind spools of thread and old needles. The box was small, metal, scratched with age. Inside, letters, medical reports, photos, and a sealed envelope with my name on it. My hands shook as I opened it. The letter was short, only one paragraph long, but it changed everything. Evan, if I ever slip into a state where I cannot speak for myself, you must know. I signed ADNR. Do not resuscitate. I froze. The room spun. I reread the words again and again until they carved themselves into my brain. She didn't want to be brought back. She didn't want CPR. She didn't want machines forcing her to stay alive. She had legally signed papers the hospital had on file, instructing that if she crashed, they were not to save her. And I, freezing, panicking, doing nothing, had actually done exactly what she wanted. My knees gave out. I sat on the floor, holding the letter to my chest, sobbing in a way I never had before. All that guilt, all that shame, all those accusations, none of them had ever belonged to me. The confrontation with Leah, I called her that night. She didn't want to answer, but eventually she picked up. What do you want? She asked coldly. You need to come over, I said, now. She sighed dramatically but arrived 20 minutes later. I handed her the letter. She read it once. Her expression shifted from annoyance to confusion to horror. She signed ADNR. She whispered, yes. And you didn't know? No. Then she swallowed hard. Then you couldn't have saved her anyway. I nodded, tears burning my eyes. She didn't want to be saved. Leah sank onto the couch, shoulders trembling. I accused you, she said quietly. I blamed you for something you had no control over. Yes, I said, you did. And you believed me. I did. Silence hung heavy between us. Finally, she whispered. Can you forgive me? I thought about that for a long moment. Then I nodded. I can, but I didn't add what I also understood. I could forgive her, but I would never forget the cost of her words. The final message 1 week later, after the truth came out, I found the notebook again. It was lying open on my desk. A new message had appeared. The last one, written in the same shaky script. Now let me go, Evan. You kept your promise. And I'm not alone. I touched the page gently, the ink smudged fresh. Whether it was real or my grief or something in between, I didn't care anymore, because for the first time since she died I felt peace. Final scene, I buried the notebook beneath the old oak tree behind our childhood home. Mom loved that tree. She said its roots made her feel grounded. As I covered the notebook with earth, I whispered, I didn't fail you. And for the first time, I believed it. When the wind blew through the branches above me, the leaves rustled softly, almost like a voice, almost like a goodbye. I closed my eyes and finally let her go.